So here we are in the chi-square test for independence, and I'm going to go through interpreting the results. So here is our contingency table. You can absolutely turn this into an APA style table, and I'll do that in a later video because it does have really useful information. And so we can see here that there were if we look out of all of our non-first generation students, so in this column, we can see that 33% fall into this panic mode category, 26 or 27% fall into this Zen acceptance, and 40% fall into depends on the day. And then we can see that in our in our yes first generation status group, we could compare that with 20% of yes said panic mode, 45% of yes said Zen acceptance, and then 35% of those who are first generation said depends on the day. Now, what we're really looking at is we're trying to compare these groups. And we're looking at them across these, we're comparing the no versus yes across these different pop reaction groups. So the percentage that fell into panic mode is 25.71 overall. And so you can see that that falls between these two percentages. And it's a little bit different, but it's not that different. And it's such a small sample that that difference ends up not being meaningful. We can see that because our p-value is so large. Same thing here. We're looking at this is overall our number or percentage of people who selected Zen acceptance. And we can see that between these, that number falls between these two first generation statuses. Same thing here. So about 37.14% for this last group. And that's right between those. So for this describes what we're seeing in our sample. And again, that's why having this table in APA style can be helpful, especially if your results are significant, that can be helpful. But what we're going to do is, again, I have this column percentages. We want to look at our chi-square test statistic. So our value for the chi-square test statistic is 1.443, rounding up. We have 2 degrees of freedom. So it's the degrees of freedom for an independent sample. A chi-square test for independence or association is the number of rows minus 1 multiplied by the number of columns minus 1. So rows minus 1, we can see, we go back up to this, rows for pop reaction minus 1 is 2. And then our columns, first generation status, 2 minus 1 is 1. So 2 times 1 equals 2. And then we have our p-value for the chi-square statistic, which would be 0.49. Again, quite large. We're going to fail to reject the null hypothesis, which means we do not have evidence to suggest that there's a difference in pop reaction, pop quiz reaction across first generation status. Now, I did calculate that Fisher's exact test because we had we had one cell that was expected to be less than 5. And then I also have this Cramer's V down here. So we have a lot of information from this test. So in the next video, I'll talk about how to write this in APA style. But essentially, we found no relationship between those variables. We don't see that somebody whose first generation status is more likely to react in panic mode or Zen acceptance, etc. And that's all I have for you in this video. And again, the next one is on APA style.